Hello, my name is Kurt Roberts and I'm the principal at Effingham High School. I would like to welcome all students and their families to a new school year at EHS. Obviously, this is a very unusual school year and I'm sure that students and families have a lot of questions. In an attempt to answer some of these questions, I am posting a couple of videos to provide information about this upcoming school year. This video specifically is for students that are choosing remote learning. There is another video posted for students who are choosing in-person learning. In this video, I will outline for the remote learner a couple of things. One, how to make sure you're registered for school. Two, how you will pick up materials from your teachers that you will need for remote learning. Number three, what will be expected of you as a remote learner. Four, how you will turn in your assignments. Five, some of the learning expectations. And six, just some general good advice. So let's start with the idea of how do you make sure you're registered for school. Basically, a remote learner needs to do two things to make sure that they're registered for school. One is to make sure that you go online and go through the registration process with Effingham Unit 40. This is just like it has been in every other year up to now. The second thing you need to do is make sure that you have indicated that your student will be a remote learner. You can do this now for a high school student by calling the high school office and indicate that that student will be a remote learner if you haven't done so already, either online or already have made the phone call. The next thing I want to talk to you about is how you're going to pick up materials for your student learner. This may be things like textbooks or calculators or other materials they may need for the class to be able to do remote learning at home. We will have information available to you during the time that you're pickup. We are scheduled for pickup dates on Thursday, August 27th and Friday, August 28th between 1:45 and 3:30 p.m. at the high school. Only the student and one adult will be allowed to be in the building and masks must be worn. The student will get a paper copy of their schedule and then they will meet with each of their teachers and their schedule to get information to pick up materials or textbooks for the class. So they will go classroom to classroom, meeting with their teachers, their teachers will be able to provide them information about the class, and if they're issuing a textbook, they will issue them a textbook at that time. Students can currently go online through their iNow parent portal and actually access their schedule if they want to see that schedule. Remote learners will have an actual schedule here at school, and we'll talk in a little bit about how that's going to be helpful for them. Let's talk a little bit about your expectations as far as a remote learner. One is you're going to be expected to sign into each of your Google Classrooms, okay? Now, there will be, it's not currently there, but there will be a video explaining how to do that is going to be available online under a link called For Remote Learners. This will give a guidance to both parents and students how to get enrolled in each of their Google Classrooms. They will need to do that as soon as they have their schedule, whether they're looking at online, right, or whether they're picking their schedules up on the 27th and the 28th. So again, just a reminder that school will start for all students on the 26th. So if a student has, a remote learner has their schedule, they know what that schedule is, they can start signing up for the Google Classrooms on the 26th. Otherwise, you're going to pick up your schedules either on the 27th or the 28th when you're here between 1:30 and 3:30 to meet with each of your teachers and pick up your material. For attendance purposes, we are required to take attendance for our remote learners. Remote learners will need to check into each of their Google Classrooms daily by the time their class meets at school. So I want to emphasize what this means. What this means is you're going to have a class schedule, and your first hour class is going to meet at 7:45. You will need to check in for attendance purposes by that class daily by 7:45. Your second period will meet at a time, all right? And you need to make sure that you're checked into that class by the time that that class meets. This class won't be live. It won't be necessarily online at that point. You're just checking into your Google Classroom, all right, by that time. Classes will be available to be checked into by 7 a.m. every day. You don't have to wait for the time period of your class to check in. As long as you're checking, and the idea here is that you're checking each of your classes to see what assignments have been given, to see what is new for that class day, to see what it is that you need to be working on. So you need to get into that habit of checking every day. All right, check in on the attendance. There will be a place for you to click on that for each one of your Google classes. If a remote learner does not check into a class, Okay, a parent needs to contact us and let us know, just like you would be calling them in his absence. So if there's a reason that a student can't be checking into their Google Classrooms, all right, they will be considered absent. A parent needs to call in and let us know what's going on and just keep us informed. All right, so again, make sure that you know that if for whatever reason a student doesn't check in and we're aware of that, then basically we just call as an administrator and say, hey, what's going on? You need to make sure. Keep in mind, we're going to be doing a lot of reminding at the beginning, and we understand that so that everybody's used to the process. But I just want to emphasize again, each remote learner will need to check into their Google Classroom for each individual scheduled class. This is why your schedule is so important to you and knowing when your classes meet by the time of your class period. That will be available to every student by 7 a.m. You do not have to wait until your class time. So if you want to get up, check into each one of your classes in the morning before they meet, that's fine as long as you're checked in prior to that class meeting. Students should also plan to be available for online sessions from 1:30 to 3:30 daily. From 1:30 to 3:30 daily is when teachers have time to work with remote learners. There is a schedule that will be in place. You will be made aware of this when you get information from your teachers. They will have access to do actual online meetings so that students that are remote learners will be able to meet with their teachers online. And so students need to make sure that they're available every day between 1:30 and 3:30. They might not meet every day with every teacher, but they need to be available 1:30 to 3:30. Your teachers will give you the guidelines of when those meetings are scheduled. Teachers will also have online office hours, and they will be posted in their Google Classroom. This will be a time when teachers will be available to students through video discussion, emails, phone calls, etc. The teacher will let the student know what method to use to make contact with them to be able to answer questions and to be able to get back with them with feedback on assignments or just questions in general about those assignments. Students will be assigned a Gmail account as a means to communicate with their teacher. What this means is the students will have an email account that's specific to the school. That email will allow them to communicate back and forth with the teacher. The teacher will be able to send emails, the student will be able to send emails directly to that teacher. You need to be in the habit, and we will give you guidelines on how to make sure you access that Gmail account later. But you need to get into the habit of checking that email very regularly, probably twice a day, right? Because this is how teachers will communicate with you, similar to how they might communicate with you if you were in the classroom. And now we got the opportunity to do that through email. All of your assignments will be turned in through the Google Classroom. Assignments will be graded for mastery of skills and correctness of the work. So this is different than what it was in the spring. In the spring, we did this on your effort and your completion. In this starting school year, we have been directed, and we will continue to do so. This will be based on getting the answers right. It will be based on mastery of the skill that the teacher is asking you to work on. So it's very important that you spend the time and the effort to do very well in your assignments, and you use your teachers as a resource to be able to get questions answered and to get the feedback that you need to do well on those assignments. Students will be expected to meet the due dates established by their teachers. So their teachers will be establishing due dates. Those will be posted in the Google Classrooms. Just like it would be in the regular classroom, students need to meet those due dates and get them turned in their Google Classrooms by the time that they're due. Just to give you some general guidelines, currently, the expectation from the Illinois State Board of Education is that each student, including remote learners, spend a minimum of 5 hours every weekday working on academic learning. This is a combination of things. This could include viewing videos. It could include online conferences with your teachers. It could include working on assignments. It could be reading a text, working on projects. But I want you to be in the habit and be thinking of the idea that the expectation is that you will be working 5 hours a day, all right, on your remote learning, right? So our in-person learners are expected to be here. Currently, the schedule is 7:45 to 1:30, all right? And so they're expecting that is the 5 hours daily that they will be in session. And so you're also expected. That doesn't mean that you have to be online for 5 hours a day. It doesn't mean that you're going to be in video conferences 5 hours a day. It just means a combination of you're working on your assignments, all right, submitting them, video conferencing, emailing with staff members to get questions asked and answered should total about 5 hours a day. So I want people to be aware of what those expectations are. I would like to kind of finish up or conclude with a few recommendations for students and families about remote learning. And these things are extremely important, and some of these come from lessons we learned in the spring. And that it's really important, first of all, that you get yourself into a routine. All right. You need to daily have a routine about how you're going to handle your education. I would make that suggestion that you use your class schedule. This is why it's important to have that. And that's why we've maintained that class schedule, so that you have this class schedule and you know that every day you have certain classes and they're in certain orders. I would sit down with that schedule as a parent and a student and say, all right, so how are we going to handle this daily? What time is class going to start for us at home? When are we going to start our first hour? When is second hour going to be? When are you going to work on these assignments? And remember, you're working at about 5 hours a day. Make sure you get into that schedule, all right? And then you're disciplined about keeping that schedule. Part of this is going to be working in that time between 1:30 and 3:30 that you're available to talk with teachers, right? That you're available to be online towards a Zoom meeting or a Google Meets, all right? So these are the things that I think that are real important. That's why that class schedule is important, to get yourself into a schedule. Determine a specific time every day that you will work on a particular class. Again, using that class schedule. Be disciplined in maintaining this routine. Check every day into your Google Classrooms to make sure that you know what is being posted and what is expected of you. You're going to have to check in on that attendance anyway. So what I'm going to suggest is that when you check into attendance, you check, make sure that your assignments that are due that day are turned in. Make sure that you are looking at what's going to be due. And you're going to have to be incredibly organized, because you won't be in the presence of a teacher every day that's basically reminding you of what to do. So as a remote learner, you're going to have to take on that organizational aspect of your learning. Make sure you have contact, you know how to contact your teacher and stay in touch. So each teacher is going to basically allow, or going to inform their remote learners on how to stay in touch. In other words, what is the best way to contact them? When is the best way to contact them? I would make sure that you understand that teachers are not going to be available to you 24 hours a day. Each one of these teachers has to go home with their own children and their own lives and their own families after work. And so therefore, they might not return an email to you at 8 o'clock at night. Now, they are asked to return questions that you might have in a timely manner, but just be aware that it won't be necessarily on the time that you absolutely need them at that time. So you've got to be prepared for that. They have time set into their schedule. And again, this is this office work hour, right, or this office hour that they will have, but it's not going to necessarily be every day, because they have commitments on the in-face learning that they're doing, plus other remote classes besides just the one that you're in. And so they're just not going to be available as much as they would be as if you're sitting in the classroom raising their hand. And think of it this way: you don't have access to your teachers outside of the hour that you're in their class. Well, this, you're going to have a little bit even less than that. So you need to work that out, and you need to understand, how do I best get in touch with my teacher, and have that expectation that it's going to take a little bit of time to get a feedback from them, and you need to be continuing to check that feedback. When a teacher sets up an online meeting, I'm going to suggest you attend it. Those teachers have a schedule, and again, they're going to make that clear to our online learners, but they're going to set up Zoom meetings or scheduled meetings for them to interact with students. If it's set up, you need to attend that meeting. That is for your benefit. This is a time when you can have direct conversation with your teacher. This is a time where you're going to be able to get direct feedback on what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're working on and the skills that you're trying to build on. I'm recommending that you do that. And I would always recommend to check your Gmail account at least twice daily. Teachers are going to use this to communicate with you. I realize that there's probably still a lot of unanswered questions. And some of these are going to be coming out, and we're going to be answering a little bit as we get down the road. There's some videos going to be put out by some of our tech departments on how to get enrolled into your Google Classrooms, how to access your Gmail accounts, those types of things. You will also be getting some information whenever you come to pick up materials from each specific teacher in the information sheet that they hand out when you pick up things from them, so that they will give you specifics about their class. This may be the office hour for the teacher. It is going to show you during that 1:30, 3:30 time for remote learning when those class hours would actually meet, so you need to be prepared for that. So more information is coming. I realize that I've probably not answered everybody's question that you may have right now in these things. So I'm going to encourage you, if you do have questions, you can call the high school. The secretaries know a lot of the answers of these things, but there might be some that they don't know. You can call and ask for me specifically, or you can ask them those questions. The number at the high school is 540-1100. Again, we're answering a lot of questions, and we realize that's okay. We will do everything we can to reassure you as to what's happening and give you the information we can. So if you have further questions, I would encourage you to call the school and ask us. I don't know that I could have necessarily anticipated all the questions, but I hope that in this video, I've been able to kind of give you some kind of guidelines on what to look for and what to expect as a remote learner. Just as a recap, a few things to remember. One, make sure that you're actually registered for school, right? That's the first step. Make sure you've registered online, that everything is in place for that happening. Make sure that if you're choosing remote learning, the school where you're remote learning, in this case, the high school, is aware that you're choosing remote learning. Also, make sure that you know that on August 27th and August 28th, all right, from 1:45 to 3:30, you will need to come to the high school, all right, to pick up material that you will need for remote learning. And just to give you another example, if you're in an art class, there may be a packet that the art teachers are sending home with you to be able to do those kind of projects at home. Also, make sure that you know the expectations of a remote learner. One of those being is you will need to check in for attendance to every class every day. Again, you don't have to do it at the class time, but you have to do it by the class time. Okay, so look at that. Those will be available every day by 7 a.m. So make sure that you're doing that and you'll be able to get in there and get those checked in. Also, understand that there will be those meetings from 1:30 to 3:30, and when the teacher sets those up, you will be expected to be in there. They will let you know of those through that Google Classroom as to when those meetings will be. Again, just to emphasize the expectation, it is 5 clock hours a day. Anticipate spending 5 clock hours a day, all right, working on your education. The last thing I'll finish with is I realize that there are a lot of unanswered questions. I realize that we're in pretty unstable conditions, unstable times. Some of these expectations may change. What we're trying to prepare for is the fact that we know things will change. We know things that, and so we're trying to prepare for the fact that when we look at this, if we have to go to total remote learning, all right, we're already prepared for that. We're already prepared for that for all of our students. And so therefore we will do that with as little transition as possible. If you have any questions, I would encourage you to call Effingham High School. Talk to me, talk to Mr. Pullen, our assistant principal, talk to one of the secretaries of the guidance counselors. We are trying to provide as much information as we can to reassure parents and help them to make well-informed decisions. I thank you again. I'm looking forward to the time that all of us can be in the same building together. Thank you very much and have a good day.